Luke chapter 22, that your faith may not fail. The house smelled faintly of coffee and the soap someone had used on the kitchen counters an hour before. In the living room, the lamp by the window was the only real light. It left the corners soft and the open Bibles bright in patches. 8 people had settled without ceremony. Couch, 2 chairs that did not match, floor cushions that had long since stopped apologizing for themselves. No one was performing readiness. They were simply there, the way people are when they trust a room not to punish a half-formed thought. Corinne Hale set her mug down and did not clear her throat for attention. She only opened her Bible and said, Luke 22, we can take it as slow as it needs. No one scrambled to be first. The clock in the kitchen made a small sound and then thought better of it. Felix Arditi, who usually listened more than he spoke, kept his finger on the page as if the paper might try to leave. He was older than most of the room by enough years that no one counted them out loud. I've been sitting with how blunt Luke is, he said at last. It almost feels like he's going out of his way to show how dense the apostles are. Jesus hands them the bread and the cup, tells them one of them will betray him, and then they argue about who is greatest. They produce swords like that was the point. They fall asleep while he's in agony. It's not subtle. A few mouths moved towards smiles. No one corrected him. No one rescued the apostles either. Sadie Kwan traced the margin with a thumbnail. It's almost embarrassing how ordinary they look, she said. Like Luke doesn't want us pretending they were finished people. Corinne nodded once. Let's not skip past the setup, though. Someone take us from the feast coming near. Plot, Judas the upper room. Page? Page Ortega read without drama. The approach of unleavened bread. The chief priest seeking a quiet way to kill him. Satan entering Judas. The arrangement for money. Peter and John sent to prepare. The man with the water jar. The furnished room. When she stopped, Malachi Reed rubbed the back of his neck. I always want the upper room to feel holy from the first step. Luke makes it sound like logistics, a water jar, a furnished space, ordinary obedience before the night turns. Maybe that's the point, Iris Delgado said, so quietly that the room leaned in without meaning to. The night does not start as a painting. It starts as a meal that still has to be set. They moved into the supper itself. Nathan Briggs read the opening of the meal. Jesus' desire to eat this Passover with them before he suffered, the cup taken and given, the words about not eating and not drinking until the kingdom. Nathan's brow furrowed. He left his finger under the verse. This is the part that makes my brain itch, he said. He says he will not eat it until it is fulfilled. He says he will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom comes. And he's sitting there sharing the meal with them. I know that's not a gotcha. How do you say I will not while you are? No one hurried to sound smart. Sadie spoke carefully. Maybe it's less refusal and more vow. This is the last Passover of the old way for him. Until the thing it points to is complete, he's with them in the meal, and he's also looking past it. Luke later has him eating fish after the resurrection, Malachi said. I read that this week, and it's snagged. So whatever the until means, it isn't that food disappears from the story. Felix's mouth tilted. Dense disciples. Careful, Luke. He won't let us smooth the edges. They stayed with the bread and the cup long enough for the room to feel the weight without naming every doctrine in the book. Corinne asked someone to read the betrayal word at the table. The air changed a fraction, the way air does when a name becomes a wound. Then Felix, not triumphant, only honest, said, and right there, right after that, they argue about rank. Paige exhaled a short laugh that was not unkind. Of all places. Of all places, Corinne agreed. Read it if you would, Iris. Iris did. The dispute over who was greatest, and Jesus among them as the one who serves, and the talk of kingdoms and thrones that still managed not to sound like a ladder they could climb by force of ego. When Iris finished, she kept her eyes on the page. I would love to say I wouldn't have argued. I probably would have, just quieter. No one treated that as a joke that needed applause. The silence that followed was the good kind. Nathan had been still for a stretch. When he spoke, his voice was lower, as if he were borrowing courage from the morning rather than inventing it for the room. I read something this morning that won't leave me alone, he said. The fourth watch piece, Peter on the water, faith real enough to step out. Then the split, when he looks at the wind, he sinks, he cries out. The hand is already moving before the question comes. When I got to Simon, Simon, Satan demanded to sift you, but I have prayed that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned, strengthen your brothers. I kept hearing that earlier night. Peter already knew a faith that could walk a few steps and still go under, and still be caught. So when Jesus prays that his faith not fail, it doesn't sound to me like never stumble. It sounds like not extinguished. The same kind of faith. Small, costly, still his. No one hurried the silence. Someone's mug made a soft sound against a coaster. Outside, a car passed and left the street ordinary again. Sadie said, "Plural sift, singular prayer. I noticed that once and then forgot it. Satan wants the group. Jesus names Peter. And still tells him he will turn," Malachi said. "Not if, when." They did not resolve it into a neat chart. They let it sit beside the water story in the upper room until both felt like the same patience. Corinne turned a page. Swords. Felix, you already named how dense it feels. Let's hear the text. Felix read the exchange. The old mission when they lacked nothing. The new word about money bag, knapsack, sword. The scripture about being numbered with the transgressors. 2 swords produced. It is enough. Paige made a face at her own thoughts before she spoke them. This is going to sound stupid. Good, Corinne said, plain as bread. Say it. If he wanted them armed, 2 swords for 12 men is a joke. If he didn't, why say buy a sword at all? And then, it is enough. Enough for what? I keep bouncing between he's equipping them and he's done with the conversation. Minutes later, someone uses a sword, and Jesus stops it and heals an ear, Malachi said. So if they thought enough meant go ahead, the next scene corrects them hard. Nathan nodded slowly. Numbered with the transgressors. Maybe the swords help the knight look the way the knight has to look. Armed company, arrested teacher, without ever becoming the way of the kingdom. I don't know. I only know Luke won't let the misunderstanding stay pretty. Felix closed his eyes briefly. Dense. Again. And not cruel. Just true. They went out with him, as the chapter does, toward the Mount of Olives. Sadie read Gethsemane, the command to pray against temptation, the agony, the cup, the angel, sweat like blood, sleep from sorrow, the same warning again. Iris's hands were quiet in her lap. What temptation? She asked. I know the word. I don't always know the edge of it that night. No one answered with a dictionary. Corinne said, in the next hour they will want to save their own skins. Deny. Scatter. The pressure is not abstract. He's telling them prayer is how you don't get swallowed by that hour. And they sleep, Paige said. Not accusing. Almost sad. From sorrow, Luke says. Even their failure has a human reason. It still costs them. Malachi's voice roughened. There's that other tension. Zechariah. The shepherd struck, the sheep scatter. Jesus says it has to happen. And still he tells them to pray so they won't enter temptation. I know we don't get the alternate history. If they had stayed awake, would the scattering have been less ugly? I don't know. We only get what did happen. And we get the one who did not sleep through the agony, Sadie said. That matters more to me than my curiosity about the path not taken. They sat with that longer than was comfortable, which was about the right length. Peter's denials came next. Courtyard fire, 3 refusals, rooster, the Lord's look, bitter weeping. Nathan read it without protecting Peter. When he finished, he did not add a moral. He only said, the prayer was already prayed. The failure still happened. The turning is still ahead. The look was left alone. Near the end, Paige took the morning assembly. Elders, chief priests, scribes. The question of the Christ, the Son of Man at the right hand of the power of God, the claim pressed, the condemnation from his own words. The room grew quieter without anyone deciding it should. Felix spoke last among them, not to close the night so much as to admit where he still stood. I came in ready to talk about how dense they are, he said. I still think Luke wants us to see it, but I also keep seeing a table set for dense people, a cup given, a prayer already under a man who is about to break, a warning in a garden, a look that does not unchoose him. If Luke is hard on the apostles, he is not soft on mercy either. He just refuses to confuse the two. Corinne did not summarize. She let the lamp hold the open pages a little longer. Someone shifted on a cushion and stayed. The chapter remained where it was. Plot and meal and argument and swords and sleep and firelight and morning judgment, while outside the street went on being only a street, and inside no one was required to have finished becoming wise before they asked the next true thing.